Here at WMAL, I'm Ernest Istook on this Saturday afternoon. Let me tell you, and I'll see if our guest agrees with this, let me tell you what I believe has happened. The civil rights movement in the 1960s had some great successes for equal treatment in education, equal treatment in transportation. You don't have to be at the back of the bus. Equal treatment in restaurants and in housing. But having accomplished these things, suddenly the movement is looking for someplace else to go, so they've turned in other directions. In order to achieve critical mass and try to have relevancy, they say, oh, okay, we've got to take on the causes of the radical feminists, or the environmentalists, or now the same-sex community, because we've got to stay in the forefront of activism, even if it means changing our goals and objectives. Give a quick listen to something that President Obama said this week about the fact the problems today for the minority communities don't compare to what they were 50 years ago.
And even if there weren't active discrimination taking place right now, and, you know, obviously we know that some discrimination still exists, although nothing like what existed 50 years ago.
Nothing like what existed 50 years ago. Our guest is Cherylyn Harley LeBon. She's co-chairman of the Project 21 National Advisory Board, which is a black leadership project. She previously served in the George W. Bush administration as senior counsel for the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee, and now she joins us today. Cherylyn, thank you so much for taking time this afternoon.
My pleasure. Great to be with you.
What has happened to the civil rights movement in America?
Well, what's happened is that it's been co-opted by the race hustlers, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and it's constantly, they're looking for opportunities to prey on black people, play on our fears, play on, complaints about how we're not doing well, when really, when you look at how much our country has changed since the 1940s and 50s, and the fact, I mean, very simply, the fact that we have our first black president, he may not be I may not share his politics, support his policies, but I think one could honestly say our country has come a long way with having the first black president of the United States.
So you agree that regardless of his politics, it is a milestone to have an African-American president in the U.S.?
Absolutely. Yes, it is definitely a milestone. Absolutely.
And is his agenda, I mean, I noticed that President Obama tries to give the image of being post-racial,
right,
that is not there. And yet, you look at what's happening in the Justice Department, in the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, at the Consumer Financial Protection Board, and elsewhere in the administration, and there is a big agenda that tries to feed the current objective of the civil rights movement, which is not equal treatment, but special treatment.
I absolutely agree. This idea that being post-racial is not at all consistent with what we've got in actual policies, because, in fact, it seems that race is injected in everything this administration does. You've already said a great example, Department of Justice. Great example of where you have racial politics at play, it seems like often.
How about the elevation of the Trayvon Martin situation at the rally this weekend?
Right. I was just going there.
Yes.
Because you have that situation, and, we've all talked about it ad nauseum, but the reality is there are Trayvon Martins being killed in the United States, in the inner cities, and elsewhere every day. Every day this is happening. And frankly, let's just even look at the president's hometown of Chicago and the type of murders that are happening there. Now, we also have a very unfortunate incident which has happened in Oklahoma, which you know about.
Absolutely.
Now, where have the civil rights leaders been there?
And yet there's such an opportunity for them. Let me remind people, this is Cherylyn Harley LeBon of the Project 21 National Black Leadership Project. Isn't that a great opportunity for civil rights leaders to speak to the people in the black community, and obviously there's a lot of young black males that are involved in this, to speak to them, to give them the type of uplifting inspiration that Frederick Douglass did, to get them to make something of their lives rather than thinking they're victims or going down the road of the most aberrant behaviors that they can find and then claiming they're victims when people are fearful when they come down the street.
Now, you bring up a very important point. Let's talk for a minute about how black Americans have fared. And we're just going to take the last 5 years under this president's administration. Well, we've seen the number of food stamps increase to food stamp recipients increase at an all-time high. We have seen black unemployment. Now, depending on what area you're talking about, black unemployment is somewhere between 35 to 39% in the black community. That is pretty high. We have seen black home ownership drop dramatically. I might add, black home ownership was at its highest during the George W. Bush administration. That is not the case now in the past 5 years.
And are you listening to President Obama's speeches? Because this week on his bus tour, he was telling people the reason the black community is having job problems is because the rich people have too much and they're holding them down.
Right.
That was his message.
Yes, here we go again. The same old, again, this divisive politics of the have versus the have-not. That is not a consistent policy in a country where we need to increase jobs, increase opportunities for our youth. I find it quite interesting and curious that he's leading this bus tour among this young population when, of course, he's not faring well. You've seen the polls. He's not faring well at all among our young population. And he's on this push to sign up younger people for Obamacare.
But Cherylyn, let me tell you what I see on that. The reason he's doing this bus tour with the young Americans who are having trouble getting jobs coming out of school,
right,
and with minority communities who, as you say, are disproportionately unemployed,
Absolutely.
He's going to the people that are hurting and to say, it's not my fault, it's the man. It's the people holding you down. The reason you don't have things is because other people have too much, and I'm going to take it away from them and give it to you.
Again,
that's why he's going to them.
That's exactly what he's doing. And again, it's more of the divisive racial politics. And I might add on Obamacare, as we know, if you don't get the young people signed up on Obamacare, they're not going to be able to pay for it. I think this is the whole game. If you can't get the young people, the young, healthy people to sign up, this isn't going to work at all. Right. Now, we know it's not going to work anyhow because of all the various problems it has.
Cherylyn, let's cover this when we come back a second. Can you stick with us through a break? And we'll talk about the Obamacare tie-in with all of these things and what's happened to the civil rights movement today. Cherylyn Harley LeBon of the Project 21 National Black Leadership Project is our guest. It's WMAL. The number is 888.